Hi everyone, my name is Charlene. We are now on lesson 8 and we will be learning about cognitive processes. For this lesson, there are 5 learning objectives. First is to describe the cognitive processes and the two views of constructivism. Second is to discuss about how transfer of learning takes place, the principles of transfer, and differentiate between the 4 different types of transfer. Third is to familiarize with Bloom's revised taxonomy of educational objectives. Fourth is to explain Sternberg's successful intelligence theory. And fifth is to identify the 4 aspects that serve as framework for creativity. Let us first talk about cognitive processes. Constructivism is a theory which claims that learners construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world by experiencing things and events and reflects on those experiences. It encourages learners to use active techniques such as experiments, real world problem solving to create their own knowledge, reflect on and talk about what they are experiencing and how it changes their previous understanding. There are two views towards constructivism. First is individual constructivism. This view is also known as cognitive constructivism because it gives emphasis on an individual's internal construction of knowledge. Constructivists believe that learners should be allowed to discover principles through their own exploration rather than receiving direct instruction by the teacher. On the other hand, social constructivism is a view that gives emphasis at knowledge exists in a social context and is initially shared with others instead of being represented solely in the mind of an individual. In this view, knowledge construction is shared by two or more people. According to social constructivists, it helps learners to shape and refine their ideas if they interact and share among other learners. There are 4 characteristics that these two views have in common. First, learners construct understanding. Learners are active thinkers who make their own interpretation of the information based on what they already know. They construct knowledge in a way that it makes sense to them. Second, new learning depends on current understanding. It is through the present use of the learners or schema that the learner has that new information will be interpreted. That is why having background on the information is important. Third, learning is facilitated by social interaction. Learners are given more opportunities to cooperate and collaborate to problem solving and discover things. Constructivists believe in making a community of learners inside the classroom because this community helps learners take responsibility for their own learning. And fourth, meaningful learning occurs within authentic learning tasks. Authentic task requires a learner to be involved in a learning activity that involves knowledge construction and understanding that is at part to the knowledge and understanding that is needed when applied in real world. For teachers, we are able to help our learners facilitate their own learning by providing an organization of knowledge or introducing concepts. Concepts are a way of grouping or categorizing objects in one's mind. First, we have concepts as feature lists. Learning a concept involves specific features that are characterized by positive instances of the concept. First, we have defining feature, which is a characteristic that is present to all instances. For example, all quadrilaterals have 4 sides. Having 4 sides is a defining feature of a square because all quadrilaterals have 4 sides. If it does not have 4 sides, then it is not a quadrilateral. Then we have correlation feature. It is one that is present in many positive instances but not essential for concept membership. For example, a mother is loving. Being loving is a feature commonly present concept regarding to a mother. However, there are mothers that may not be loving. Therefore, being loving is a correlational feature and not a defining one. Then we have concepts as prototypes. Prototypes are ideas or visual images of a typical example. Prototypes are formed and based on the positive instances that our learner encounters most often. For example, you ask your students to close their eyes and let them picture a bird. Your students would probably have thought of an image of a bird that they usually see rather than a rare breed of species. Then we have concepts as exemplars. These concepts represent various examples. This allows the learners to know that an example under a concept may have variability. For example, a learner's concept of citrus fruits like orange, dalandan, and lemon. When the learner encounters a manatsu, the learner would search from the examples and associate it to the most similar fruit that he knows, which is orange. The following are the ways on how you can help your students to learn concepts. You can do this by providing clear concept definition, make defining features concrete and prominent, provide various positive instances, cite negative instances, cite a best example of prototype, provide your learners with various opportunities to identify positive and negative instances, encourage your learners to think of their own example of concept, and point out how concepts are related to each other. Transfer is a very significant concept in education and learning because most of those that are concerned in education aim to achieve transfer. Educational goals are not met until transfer takes place. Transfer of learning takes place when learning in one context or with a set of materials affects the performance in another similar context or materials. There are four types of transfer. First, we have positive transfer, which occurs when learning in one context improves the performance in some other context. For example, fluent Mexicans learn the Spanish easier than learning Korean language. Then, second, we have negative transfer. This is when learning in one context impacts negatively on the performance of another. For example, learners assimilate a new language's phonetics to crude approximations in their native tongue and use word orders carried over from their native tongue. In this case, a Visayan-speaking child has the tendency to interchange E and I sound when speaking English. Third is near transfer. This refers to transfer between very similar contexts that is also known as specific transfer. For example, a student answers a type of algebra word problem in an exam that is similar to what he has answered before during one of their seat work. Fourth is far transfer. It refers to transfer between contexts that, on appearance, seem remote and alien to one another. This is also known as general transfer. For example, Stephen Covey's applied Aesop's fable, the goose that lays the golden egg in managing corporations. The revised Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives is where Benjamin Bloom collaborated with Max Engelhardt, Edward First, Walter Hill, and David Cratwell in 1956 to publish a framework for categorizing educational goals. This is known as the Taxonomy of Educational Objectives, familiarly known as Bloom's taxonomy. There are six major categories in this Bloom's taxonomy framework with corresponding subcategories. This includes knowledge, which involves recalling of specific and universal methods and processes, pattern, structure, or setting. Its subcategories include knowledge of specifics, knowledge of ways and means of dealing with specifics, and knowledge of universals and abstractions in the field. Then we have comprehension, which is a type of understanding or apprehension that the learner knows what is being communicated and make use of the material or idea without necessarily relating it to other material or seeing its full implications. We have application, which is the use of abstraction in particular and concrete situations. Analysis, which is the breakdown of communication into its subpart elements or constituents, that the hierarchy of ideas is clear and our relationship between ideas are put together and are made explicit. Then we have synthesis, which is the putting together of elements and parts to form a whole. Then, lastly, we have evaluation. This is where judgments about the value of material and methods for given purposes. After 45 years, a revision of the original taxonomy was published in 2001 with the title A Taxonomy for Teaching, Learning, and Assessment. The revised taxonomy used verbs and gerunds to label their categories and subcategories. The action words describe the cognitive process by which thinkers encounter and work with knowledge. So these are the following subcategories. First is remembering. Second is understanding. Third is applying. Fourth is analyzing. Fifth is evaluating. And sixth is creating. In addition to these changes, knowledge is at the basis of the six cognitive processes. However, the authors created a separate taxonomy of the types of knowledge used in cognition. First is factual knowledge, where is the basic elements that a learner must know. Second is conceptual knowledge. It is the interrelationship among the basic elements that is within a larger structure that enables them to function together. Third is procedural knowledge. These are methods of inquiry and criteria for using skills, algorithms, techniques, and methods. Lastly, we have metacognitive knowledge, which is the knowledge of cognition in general as awareness and knowledge of one's cognition. Let's move on to Sternberg's successful intelligence theory. He came up with the triarchic theory of intelligence during the 1980s, and over the years, this theory evolved from a complicated theory to a much simpler one known as the successful intelligence theory. He collaborated with other prominent psychologists and proposed the WICS model, or the Wisdom, Intelligence, Creativity Synthesized Model. According to Sternberg, there are four skills included in the successful intelligence theory. These include the memory skills, which helps learners to recall facts and pieces of information. It helps the learners retain information that they acquire. Then we have analytical skills, which helps the learners to determine whether a particular idea is good. Creative skills allows the learner to come up with ideas usually intended to answer a need or solve a problem. And one becomes flexible when they are able to adjust to changes. Practical skills enables a learner to apply what one has learned. It also allows a learner to carry through or implement a plan. According to Sternberg, successful intelligence is the ability to succeed in life given one's own goals within one's environmental context. Its focus is to be able to maximize one's strengths, not only to adapt, but to be able to contribute significantly to the society, and each learner has his or her own way of practicing the four skills due to the diverse strengths. Edward Paul Torrance created a framework for creative thinking, and it is divided into four aspects. First is fluency. It refers to the production of a great number of ideas or alternate solutions towards a problem. It implies not only remembering the information that is learned, but as well as understanding. Flexibility refers to the production of the ideas that show a variety of possibilities or realms of thoughts. It involves the ability to see things from different points of view, to use many different approaches or strategies. Elaboration is the process of enhancing ideas by providing more details because it improves interest in and understanding of the topic. Originality involves the production of ideas that are unique or unusual. It involves synthesis or putting information about a topic back together in a new way. So that would be all for today. Thank you for listening. Remember that education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think, according to Albert Einstein. That will be all for today. I'll see you in my next video. Have a nice day.